Installing your own irrigation system is easy and it takes all the hassle out of watering your garden. Here's how. To get started, you'll need some graph paper, a measuring tape, a 9-litre bucket, and the Easy As PDF guide from our website to help with calculations and materials. Now the first thing you're going to need to do is check your water pressure. Really simple task. Grab yourself a standard 9-litre bucket and time how long it takes to fill it. Now the really important part here is to make sure your tap is on full blast before you start the timer. Great, so that's about 19 seconds. To work out our LPM, or litres per minute, we multiply the 9-litre bucket by 60 seconds, which equals 540. Then divide that by the time it took to fill, which was 19. So 540 divided by 19 equals 28.4 litres per minute. This helps us work out how many lines and sprayers our systems can handle. Right, so next we're going to map out the garden to scale. Really important to note where the water source is and any of the other obstacles in the garden to work around for the irrigation. Take your time with this, it does need to be really accurate. In this garden we'll be running water to the 4 beds, 2 pots and the lawn. And even though it's a small area, the same principles apply. Now there's a range of different parts you can use to create your irrigation system. First up, we've got the pop-up sprayers, really great for use in lawns, and they come in a range of different spray patterns. You got sprayers, great for garden beds and things like that, can be directional or a 360 spray. You got little drippers, great for garden pots and containers, good for getting a lot of soaking down to the roots. Elbows and T-bars for connecting the whole system up. And then your main pipelines, your 19mm, 13mm and your 4mm pipes. Now your next step is to work out how many of each component you need for your garden. So grab your drawing, your Easy As guide and get planning. I'm going to run one line for the lawn with a couple of pop-ups and a separate line on a T-bar for the beds and pots with a combination of sprayers and drippers. You want to aim for the least nozzles as possible with the correct spray patterns, which will save water and money. Use 19mm pipe for lawns, 13mm pipe for your beds and 4mm pipe for any lines feeding off from those. So now that our plan is sorted, we need to check that this 28.4 litre per minute water source can handle all these nozzles. So grab your guide and start adding them up. For my beds, I have 3 sprayers and each of them uses 0.75 litres per minute. You can find this info on the back of the pack. So 0.75 times 3 equals 2.25, plus 5 drippers at 0.55 and a raised dripper at 0.06, making the total for this line 5.06 LPM. And for the lawn, my 270-degree pop-up runs 7.5 litres per minute and the 360 uses 10. So that's 17.5 all up, which makes these lines all well under the 28.4 LPM flow rate from my tap. So we're good to go. Right, so it's time to get started. Now I've fitted our 3-way adapter onto the tap here. So first up, you're going to need to get a tap to pipe connector for the 13mm pipe, so make sure it's got the 13mm adapter on there. Right, next up, basically you're just going to measure out our first length of pipe, which will run from the tap to the ground. Get a rough gauge of how long that's going to need to be. Give yourself a little bit extra so you can always cut it off afterwards. So that looks good. Just keep that mark and then get a nice solid surface behind you and just cut that pipe. Get your 13mm little clamp, slide that over first, twist that on until it's all the way up. Slide up the clamp. Every joint will need the support of one of these clamps, which will keep things watertight. Cool, so we're ready to put in our first connector. Now, check if there's any excess on here. Just use secateurs to trim it off. Now what we're going to use is a 90-degree elbow. It's going to help us come along the ground here, and it's going to mean we're not going to have any kinks in our hose. So grab another 13mm little clamp, put that on first, then pop the connector in. And just tighten it up. Right, first stage done. We're going to attach our next length of pipe, cut that off, push that in, and just tighten it up. Then we're going to get into our T-bar. Really simple, same process here. Now these can be a little bit stiff. You can put it in some warm water to help soften up the plastic. So now our T-bar that we've just put on here is going to help us split the line into our 2 different beds. Next, we're just going to use this pipe measure how much we need to get along, and then use 90-degree elbows again to come up and into our beds. Now we've got that all set up, I'm just going to secure our lines to the bed and to the ground using these little 13mm saddle clamps and some stakes. Secure the lines as you go. It keeps things tidy and easy to work with. Then I'll feed a couple of lengths of pipe under the deck to the far beds and connect them up. Now important, before we put any stoppers or sprayers on, just to run water through the system. That's just going to make sure there's no bugs or any dirt or anything like that in the pipe. Now do this before you make the pipe hard to get to so you can sort out any blockages. Right, so now lastly, just going to put our little end stopper on the end. Make sure that's where we want it to be. Slice it off. Again with a little ratchet clamp on first. Just pop that on. And the line's done. Right, so we're pretty much ready for our first sprayer. Now I've chosen this one, it's a little 360-degree sprayer, and I know it's going to cover this whole bed. There are lots of different ones to choose from, so just check on the back of the packet. Now we're going to use our multi-tool here. It's got a little point on the end, just to prick into our pipe, and then simply screw in the sprayers. Make sure here not to get any dirt anywhere near the little joint as well. And just twist that on. Just make sure it's nice and tight and gets a good seal. So for our next bed, we're going to do the same thing again with another 360-degree sprayer. Just this time we're going to put on a 200mm riser. Stab our hole. We're just going to go one in this bed again. And it just screws onto the top. Nice and easy. And just pop that into the pipe. And once that's in, just secure it with a little riser pipe stake. Just helps it stay up nice and straight. So for my pots, what I'm going to do is run some of this 4mm pipe up to them with some drippers on the end. So just same process again. Just pop a hole in the side. I've got one of these little 4mm joiners. Now that'll slot into the back of your multi-tool like that. And that'll just help you screw it in. Now, just attach a little 4mm tubing. That just screws on. I'm just going to run it out so that we know that we've got enough to get up into our pot here. Give it a little bit of extra, and we'll just cut that off. Now what we've got here is a little stake with a dripper on the end of it. Really clever. Just pop it onto the end and just set that in the pot, just like that. Next, we'll crack into the lawn. Start by digging a trench about 200mm deep along the line of pipe. Keep it in tidy chunks to pop straight back in when you're done. Right, so that's our trench all dug. Next thing we're going to do is just run this 19mm line over to our lawn and cut that off. Pop it under this timber edging we've got here. Again, just same with the little ratchet clamps. And our last elbow. Make sure it's nice and tight. Last part of our elbow there. Just feed that along the length of our trench. Now don't forget to run water through it again to clear it. So the first pop-up we're going to use here is a 270-degree sprayer. That's because we've got some stones over here and we're trying to conserve water, so we're only going to end up with water on the lawn. Now to put one of these in, it's the same sort of T-bar as we used before, but this one's got a thread on the top of it, and that just goes into the base of our pop-up sprayer. Just twist that on. And just same principle as before. Cut this pipe, and then we'll just attach on both sides. Clamp on first, sprayer in, and clamp it up. Same again on the other side. Right, so that's our first pop-up done. Now set it down on the ground. You're gonna make sure that this is just above ground level, so the lawnmower just avoids it, and then the water pressure will pop the little sprinkler up. Then just repeat the process to the end of the line and pop a cap on the end to finish up. Next, backfill your trench and tidy up any areas you dug up along the way. Lastly, turn on the tap to check your handiwork. Adjust any nozzles to make sure they're covering the right areas and it's job done. To make things even easier, you can install a timer. There's a huge range to choose from in store, so go in and choose the one that's best for you. Easy as.